Alright, so this is a follow-up video to my earlier video where I showed you how to migrate an Android Studio project to AndroidX. This one's specific to Kotlin. So in other words, I'm going to talk about some of the pitfalls and problems you may come across when converting a Kotlin Android Studio project to AndroidX. So make sure you check out that first video first, where I've outlined some of the things that you need to do to migrate. But then after you've watched that, come back here and watch this one and we'll go through the remaining steps to hopefully get you up and going with your Kotlin project, converting that or migrating it over to AndroidX. Let's make a start. If you haven't watched the previous video in this series, you may want to do that before watching this one. And that's because in this video, I'm going to show you a couple of problems you might get when migrating code to use AndroidX. However, I won't be discussing the migration process itself in detail. That's in the previous video. So there's a link to that video on screen now and also in the description for this video. But moving on, we've got a Kotlin project to migrate. So let's see what happens when I migrate it to use AndroidX. So I'm going to come up to the refactor menu. I'm going to select Migrate to AndroidX, bearing in mind that this is only going to be showing on your screen for Android Studio if you're running 3.3 of Android Studio. Now, what I'll do is I'll let the tool create a backup zip file, and then I'm going to click on Do Refactor, and I'm going to put that in the folder above the current project, so there's no way it gets added to this project. I'm going to replace the one that I had there now. And you can see it's actually scanning for users and working out what needs to be updated to do the refactor process. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, you may get a dialog that looks something like this, showing or saying that the changes were detected. If you do get this dialog, click on the Rerun Search button. At the moment, though, that behaves strangely, and you'll probably get a second refactoring review pane, preview pane I should say, but without the Do Refactor button. If that's the case, just close the pane and click on the Do Refactor button in the original pane. But in my case, none of that came up. Alright, so I'm going to click on Do Refactor now. And that'll take a while to finish because it's going to go through and figure out what needs to be updated. And it's actually going to download the appropriate components. Once that's finished, we're going to check out what has actually changed. Alright, so that's finished now. So first thing we'll do is we're going to check out the modules build.gradle file. So I'm going to come down to Gradle scripts and look at our module app, our build Gradle file. And if you scroll down and have a look, there's quite a few old versions here. And we can see that all these versions have now got newer versions available. Basically, AndroidX is changing rapidly at the moment as we get close to the release versions of each library as of the time I'm shooting this. Now the light bulb, if I click into some of these, it'll actually change everything but this first entry. And the reason I won't do this first one is because this one defines the version number separately, and Android Studio won't offer the option to change it. But I can go through and do the other ones, and I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to select each of these and change. And obviously by doing this, I'll need to resync the project. So I'll just go through and do all of these. Alright, so I've got all of those changed other than that first entry, as I mentioned. And I need to resync now, or click on Sync Now to enable that to go through, and the project will then resync. And once that's finished, you can see it's downloading various files now in the status bar at the bottom of the screen. Once that's finished, we'll go through and have a look and see what problems that it's caused. And in general, when you're doing this, it's a good idea to review all the files in the project to check for problems. But the two main things I'll tell you now while this is still working that you'll find currently are unused imports as well as incorrect overrides. We'll just let this finish and we'll come back and go through that. Alright, you can see now that the Gradle project rebuild has finished. We've just got this one warning now, which we'll leave. We won't bother changing that. We could type that in manually if we wanted to. In fact, why don't I do that? I'll just go through and change the lifecycle version. So 2.1.0-alpha 2, 2.1-0- it was alpha 2. Let's just do that and resync it, just so we've got no other warnings in our build Gradle file. Alright, so I want to show you now some of the errors that will be introduced. So the first one we've got, I'm going to open some of our Kotlin code And in this project, the first one is the date picker fragment class. We have a look at that. And if we have a look at the error over here, we can see if we hover over it, onAttach overrides nothing. And that's because the function signature's changed in the AndroidX code. So on line 52 here, the context parameters declared as a nullable context. Java doesn't have non-nullable types, but Google have been adding annotations to the Android framework code to let Kotlin know that some functions won't be called with null arguments. And that's actually what's happened here. And we can see that by control or command clicking on the super attach function on line 54. So I'm going to do that. We're viewing the source code now. And you can see on line 310, the context parameters marked as non-null using that annotation. So therefore, to fix it, that's quite easy. What we can do is just come back and remove the question mark from the parameter type. The context arguments being used inside the function and deleting the nullable type marker, as I've done, has now given us a warning, and that's an unnecessary safe call operator down here on line 57. The AndroidX libraries are a lot nicer to use from Kotlin because Google have been adding these non-null annotations. We don't have to use so many safe call operators when overriding functions now. Right, so what I'm going to do is delete that safe call and we'll see what the next problem is. So let's do that. And you can see we've now got a redundant call to toString now. I needed an example to demonstrate how AndroidX results in changes to our code, but that line's done its job now, and therefore the toString function call can be deleted. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to leave in $context. We'll delete the rest of this code. Right. Alright, so that's fixed up that class. The next thing I want to look at is the cursor recycler view adapter class. Now you may find that in your import sections you'll actually see an unused import. In my case that hasn't come up, but that may come up for you. But the problem comes about because of the fully qualified names that the migration process has actually adopted. You can see on line 17, for example, we've got AndroidX.recyclerView.widget. So it's a fully qualified name for the recycler view. So I'm going to remove that. And then I'm going to accept the import. Right, so that's one that I've actually fixed, and I'll just go back and put that code back as it was. Now again, this wasn't a particularly bad problem, but if you do see an unused import, it's just a minor annoyance that perhaps you might want to fix. In my case, I would prefer to actually not use those fully qualified path names as you saw there. So what we've done is we've removed that fully qualified name. I'm going to do a search for AndroidX. I'm going to remove the other ones as well. There's one more here on line 41, as you can see. I'm going to remove that as well. And do a search, and basically that's all there is now. Alright, so I've corrected both of those. Now if we have a look at another example, we'll go back to our project and look at our durations report. Now you probably saw there briefly there was an unused import, and the reason it's not showing up actually is because I've got in my preferences under general auto import, I've got optimize imports on the fly, so it's actually hiding those unused imports. But basically it's still using the same, or it's the same issue of that fully qualified name, and I think it's better not to use those fully qualified names. And what we can do is just do a search for AndroidX. You can see there's one there again. We can just replace that with Linear Manager. I won't go through and do all of these now. Okay, and there's the other one. Basically it's more of the same, so I won't fix up any more of those. But there are some other problems that will prevent the app from running currently. The first one I want to draw your attention to is main activity class. We've got an error down here. Basically we need to change our bundle question mark to a non-nullable type bundle. So we'll just remove the question mark, and that will fix that error. And main activity fragment has got the same problem. Basically with context that we've seen previously, I'm going to remove that non-nullable type again, and I'm just going to fix up the redundant toString call. Okay, and that's good to go. So as you can see, these issues are pretty easy to find and fix. And before I run the app to check that it still works, I'm going to finish with a warning. We've been changing fully qualified class names to simplify them, and there are quite a few in some of the other classes. Fragment activity extensions, for argument's sake, has got a load of them. and that could certainly do with being tidied up. When you're going through the project, it's easy to get into the habit of automatically simplifying these names, but one place you shouldn't do that is in the layout resource files. So I open my one of my task layout files. It's in the resource layout folder, and the name is our task_duration. So I open that up and make sure that I'm in text view, which I am, and we'll just go to full screen. So first you notice that the constraint layout has been fully qualified. It's coming from AndroidX.constraintLayout.widget. Don't try and simplify that to just constraint layout or you'll break the app. And the last widget in this file, if we scroll down to the bottom, the recycle view is also fully qualified, as you can see. Once again, leave that alone. If you change those references to remove the package name, your app will crash when it tries to inflate the layouts. All right, so with that said, let's close that down. And let's try running our app to make sure that it works. And you can see, in fact, we've got one other thing that I need to fix, an unattached override that does nothing. So I'm just going to double click into that. Same deal there as we saw previously. Get rid of the non-nullable type. And that fixes the problem. And we'll try running it again. Okay, well, we'll ignore those other warnings down the bottom of the screen for now. But you can see that at this point, the main screen is loaded up. And if I tap on the eye icon on the toolbar, or in the toolbar, we can see the report screen. Now, there's no data in the app, so the report's blank, but we know that at least it's loading. I can go back to the main screen. And I can also click on the About dialog from the extended menu. So that's working fine. Now, obviously, I should put this app through its complete test cycle. Changing the libraries that your app uses is a major change, and you'll need to test your app thoroughly afterwards, and obviously I haven't done that in this video. Alright, so that's the project migrated and ready for thorough testing and future development. Alright, so thanks for watching. If you've got questions, leave a comment. If you're ready for the next programming specific video, click on the link up here in the top left hand corner of your screen. So look at non-coding programming related questions, click on the link down the bottom left hand corner of your screen. Feel free to subscribe by clicking on the link up here, and I'll see you in another video.